more books.
3 more books. Bruh.
I'm Hercules.
Why did we do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Sometimes our brothers.
That doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to do that. Okay, hello. Welcome back. Sorry we missed you last week, but we're here now. I'm John.
I'm Sierra.
And this is And They Were Readers. This is really tragic, and I was supposed to tell you earlier, so it wasn't like here. Not like tragic.
We do this all the time. We hung out for an hour before this.
This is the trend. I spilled coffee on my shirt.
Oh,
it's right here.
It's okay.
I know. It was so sad.
I didn't notice it.
I know. It's because it's like kind of matches the vibe.
Yeah. If you didn't say anything, I wouldn't.
That's fair. I'm gonna get the stains out.
Yeah, easy.
But it was, those like coffee lids. When you drink out of them, it like...
Sometimes there's liquid that gets trapped in there and it spills on you. As a messiest girl, certified TM, I know that happens often. So when you get a new cup like this, I now get a napkin that goes around the cup and I drink from there because I've made a mess several times.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You saved me so many words.
Oh, it's because I'm a messy girl certified.
Yeah. It was honestly, I looked down and I was like...
Yeah, he's not messy at all. He never makes a mess.
And that's just the whole day for me now. Today, we are back with another wrap-up. Now...
He's here with another wrap-up. I didn't read anything.
And that's okay.
That is okay.
Yeah.
I made progress on Warm Hands with Ghosts.
Mm.
I made progress on Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah.
I made progress on Beautyland. I made progress on...
There doesn't have to be another one.
There is.
Okay.
I don't remember it. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
So tell me what you read.
So I have
to
a good bit of books here. I don't want to do it in this order.
No, I get to choose when this happens.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. There's a lot going on in there.
Interesting. Ooh, but I understand. Oh, I did.
Big reaction.
Okay. All right. Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so last month was Black History Month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Black History Month.
And one of the books that he ordered during the video and had already finished was 7 Days in June. And so I know we're all itching to know what he thought about this. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is, and so many people say it, and I really wanted to be skeptical, but they say as soon as you read it, it becomes your favorite romance. And
really?
And it's true. It's true. This is my new favorite romance. It blew everything else out of the water.
More than Open Water?
Open Water's different.
It's like more literary for you in your brain?
Yeah.
It's not
I
like
put it in a different category.
Emily
entirely.
Henry, Abby Jimenez, now Tia Williams,
Correct.
crushing it in the romance division.
Yes.
Understood.
Thank you. So that's where we are. So 7 Days in June, we follow, her name is Ava, and then the guy's name is Shane. They live in New York, and they're both writers with different backgrounds, and they write very different things. Basically, let me try to do this without spoiling anything. Ava suffers from just constant migraines. And one of the things you'll notice, and this isn't a spoiler, is that the author, as you read it, you're like, this is so well described that the author must also have experienced something similar to this. So when you got to the end of the book and read the author's note, she said it, and I was like, yeah, that was a given. You explained that so well, and the pain was so detailed that I was like, this author is familiar with that. They meet as kids, and then they kind of reconnect as adults. Ava has a daughter. She's divorced. Were they married? Don't remember. But the dad lives on the other side of the country. He lives in California. And yeah, there's this back and forth. I really appreciated that this entire book centered Black people in literature. It also talks about connecting with your roots and your family, going back to history and the generations that came before you, especially women of color that set foundations to push and support their children over generations. And that's something that's something that's very familiar to a lot of immigrant families, children of immigrants. Very, very relatable, very pertinent. Yeah. The love in this was very realistic. It didn't feel far-fetched. There was no quippy love phrases that people wouldn't say in real life. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Thank you.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves in romance books when I'm like, Would you, like, I could not imagine myself saying that to another person.
I was like, people don't say this in real conversation. That's crazy. Yeah, a little bit steamy.
A little bit steamy.
A little bit steamy, but in a good way.
Open door, closed door, the door is cracked.
You always do this. I think cracked door, but very good. Highly recommend. It was great to read during Black History Month.
It's available. Sorry. I'm going to borrow right
that's crazy. And it centers Black love, and that's just something that was really cool to read about.
Well, and that was the whole point of, like, our list for last month,
Yeah.
was kind of looking at books that both celebrate Black joy and then also talk about Black history in the United States.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
As you're describing it, what I, like, was going to say earlier was there's something that came over me, like, my body, that said, I need to write now. You know what I mean? That feeling of, I must write. That was how I felt, because hearing people share about their experiences makes me want to explore that through the medium of writing. So
yeah, no, for sure.
very exciting. Okay, good book.
Very good book. Highly recommend that one.
Okay, yes, here.
Yes.
This book you were reading while in Colorado.
God.
And there's a lot of, like, mixed emotions about this. It's really funny. One of my friends had to DNF it because it just, like, was not the vibe. So I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. It was one of the finalists for the Booker Prize, right? Last year or 2 years ago? I don't know what year we were in, so.
2 years ago. Yep. Okay. The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. I have words for this book.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get on my soapbox and then I'll get off and we'll just be here for the ride.
I don't endorse or, like, not endorse anything that's about to be said.
it's all safe, I promise.
Okay. The way you set it up, I was like, don't include me.
I speak for me and me alone.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Bee Sting is a family saga placed in Ireland. We follow this nuclear family of 4, mom, dad, daughter, son. And you get to read from each of their perspectives throughout the entire book. You start with the daughters and then you kind of go from there. At the beginning of the book, my idea was, we're getting this entire story from the daughter's perspective. And then you quickly find out that's not the case. The time that each character is given is very equal and very fair. And it's very easy at the beginning of the book to choose a villain in the story. I did. And then as you continue to read, Paul Murray gives validity to every single character's emotions, feelings, reactions. So it truly is an experiment in empathy. You can't really, by the end of it, choose a villain because I don't believe there is an objective villain to this story. It is everybody coming to this situation, this era of time in this family's life with their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own backgrounds. So, I will say, the part that our friend DNF'd in, one of the characters, Paul Murray chooses to write them without any punctuation.
None.
There's no periods, no commas, nothing. So that, for like 150 pages,
It's so long.
it was a lot. I'm going to be honest with you.
How long did it take your brain to catch up to understand, like, to get into the rhythm of it? Did it ever fully get into the rhythm of it?
I wouldn't say it ever got into the rhythm of it fully. It just learned to accept it better.
Okay, but your, like, brain still had to think hard about where the stops were, where the beginnings were.
Yeah, you get used to it because you can use capitalizations as an indicator of a new sentence.
Okay.
But not all the time.
So they capitalized.
Yes, yeah. But not all the time because sometimes there's names in the middle of a sentence and that's not the start of a new sentence.
It would have taken a lot for me to not grab a pencil.
And start for later. That's crazy. That would have taken me even longer to finish the book.
Yeah, but my brain would have been like, but the grammar.
And you get through it and you're like, wow, okay, at least we're done with her section. Don't have to do it again. No, they come back. So Jack Edwards describes this book as a spiral that goes inward. So the first time you are with one of the characters, they take a lot of time, like 150 pages each. And then the next time you cycle back through and it's like 30 pages each, 20, like 15, 5, until it's one line each at the end of the story.
That's so cool.
It's
what
so
a cool structure.
Well structured. And that's why I was so frustrated with Paul Murray because I almost DNF'd as well. When our friend DNF'd, I was like, you know what? If it's just me by myself, why am I here? And I had to push through. And I'm happy I did because it really did make me think about my Empathy, My Prejudice. If you know how I talk about A Little Life, I say it's a book that truly boosted my empathy. Like I felt like my brain like expand in a way. And this is a book that did something similar, just in a different way. And I realized when I got to the end of it that I was angry at the book. And I was like, why do I have all this tension with this book? It did nothing to me. And then I had to start reflecting. When you are introduced to new backgrounds and you are choosing to give validity to other people's stories, there's growing pains for your brain.
Yeah.
So empathy isn't the easy option, especially when it's a group of people or a personality type that you have chosen to kind of block out before. Whoa. You set up these barriers in your head, and now you have to break those barriers down, and it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. So that was something that I had to reflect on. But anyway, I talked about this book for a long time. I did enjoy it. I think I gave it a 4. There were parts of it that I truly wanted to be done.
I mean, immediately after, you did not love it.
Yeah.
The version I got was not this. When we first talked about this book.
I reflected on this book so much. Because I was like, why?
That's how you know it's blah, blah, blah.
So that's why I was upset with him. I was like, you put me through so much. You forced emotional growth. What's going on?
That's funny.
So thank you, Paul. Good work.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
I talked about that for a long time, my bad.
No, you're good, you're good. I'm curious about this one.
This one.
It's okay. I was like, are you okay? So this is a book I read a year and a half ago.
Sure.
2 years ago?
A while ago.
And it was right after this person had passed away that I had like picked it up because it was on my radar for a long time, but he had passed away, and so one of my professors like put it on his Instagram of like, this author should be read, blah blah blah. And so I was like, okay. Yeah. Will do. And then I told him about it, and then he didn't read it until recently. So he read it as an audiobook.
Correct.
So I feel like he's gonna have different feelings, which is fine. But I'm like bummed because it was like the reading experience that was so helpful and like helped with structure and stuff. But
without further ado,
The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera.
Wow, that was great. That was really good.
I have nothing. This is all I had to give. This is my job here today.
So yeah, this book, this year, on this channel, we're going through the books on our shelves. Okay.
Right. Yes.
And so that's what kind of inspired me.
And from the library. I'm definitely still borrowing from the library. I'm sorry.
I did buy a book that I'll talk about later. It's okay. So that was what inspired me to read this one. It had been on my shelf for so long. I saw that it was available as an audiobook. I said, you know what? We're doing it. I do, as I was listening to it, especially getting to the end, I 100% think this is a book that is meant to be read, not listened to. I get that, and I think it did have an effect on how I rated it, how I enjoyed it. This book is fiction. It's placed mostly in the Czech Republic, in like the early 1900s, I want to say.
I read this long ago.
It's older.
Oh, yeah.
And it is kind of a philosophical like thought experiment on intimacy, and relationships between people, in the light of a lot of like political turmoil, and there's a lot of movement that happens. There's a lot of characters, a lot of promiscuosity. That's a word. Sure. There's a lot of sleeping around. Okay.
Yeah, but there is a reason at the end.
At the end?
Yeah. I don't remember every detail about this, but like basically you're looking through the window. And you make assumptions about what's happening through the window. And so you actually don't know if any of this happened to the people through the window.
That's crazy.
That's why...
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. That's crazy.
But you only get that because of how it's structured within the book, and then all of a sudden you realize that your perspective is one that has made assumptions this entire time.
Okay, and that's fair. I did see that as we were going throughout, because you're jumping around to all these different characters and getting their perspectives on things that have already happened or getting explained from a different point of view. At the end of the book...
I don't remember the end.
He starts talking about the idea of kitsch. The word kitsch.
I know this word, yes. I just don't remember.
I talk about semantic satiation, because when I was listening to the book, all I could hear was da 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 kitsch, da 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 kitsch, kitsch. And I was like, listen, I can't do it anymore. I lost focus on everything else.
Yeah.
And he does define kitsch and how he's using it
Mm-hmm.
in this context.
Mm-hmm.
Lost that after the first 2 times because he just kept it over and over and over again. And I was like, listen, sir.
That's so funny.
I'm really trying to pay attention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I could only focus on the word kitsch. Could I tell you what it means now? Absolutely not, because I forgot after the first time. So that really, especially at the end of it, as I was already struggling with listening to it, that was kind of just like, it was the end for me. My brain said, nope, you're listening,
it's so
but you're not
sad,
understanding.
I've been trying to get him to read this for like 2 years. And now it's ruined, but
it's tough. I won't read it again.
No, and that's okay.
The bowler hat had more significance than I feel like you gave it the last time we talked about
I
it.
feel like it had very little significance to me.
Okay. It shows up more than I expected,
Oh,
based
that's
on
fair.
the way you reacted to it.
It does. But that's why I also said it's the book with bowler hat. Like, my copy
Yeah.
didn't have a bowler hat. It had a dog
It
with
had a
sad
dog.
eyes.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I mentioned the bowler hat because of it was obviously there.
It was there. I think it makes more sense to have the bowler hat on the front than the dog on the front. The dog had its time
I
at
don't
the
remember
end.
its dog.
That's crazy.
Well, it's just so long. I remember reading about the dog and being like, oh, that's why the dog's here, but I don't remember the point of the dog.
The dog came really into play at the very end. You know about the dog from the beginning, and it doesn't look anything like the dog on the cover.
Yeah, whoever was the artist who designed that, I'm sorry to you. You did not capture it.
I don't know. It was probably on purpose. There's probably some artistic reason behind it.
Sure.
But yeah, the dog comes into play at the end. I won't talk about it much or spoil it, but there is a dog. There is a bowler hat. Read it if you're interested. Look into it, because I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. But it did have interesting things to say, and I did learn some stuff.
And some people say it's like too pretentious. Fair enough.
That's so fair.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
think
fair.
it's appropriately philosophical for what it was going for. So
Yeah.
I think that part of the pretension
Sure. Keep going. We're making up words today. Yeah.
That's a real word. Is the fact that like the main character is pretentious.
Yes.
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I liked it. So.
And that's your God-given right.
Boom. Oh, okay. Tell me about this.
Wow.
I love the cover.
You want to share it with the class?
No.
Okay.
It's for me right now.
Take your moment.
This is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El Akkad.
Mm-hmm.
And I know nothing about this book except for you loved it.
I did love it. Okay, so let me start with a general overview here.
Is this one of the books this is the book that you bought? Sorry.
This is a book that I saw on BookTube somewhere, probably Jack. And as soon as I heard the title and the premise, I pre-ordered it and made sure I got it day one. So the title comes from a tweet made by this author.
It's such a pretty cover on the inside, too.
I know. Near the beginning of the conflict in Palestine between Israel and the most current conflict between Israel and Palestine. So the tweet is, one day, when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. So the premise of this book, this author is kind of explaining the phenomenon that as especially a Western society, we tend to turn a blind eye to current conflict, and we have this idea, this premise that when we look back on it, when when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, we will all collectively agree that we were always against it. So some historical examples, the civil rights movement, and he talks about protests, so I'll get more into that later. So I'm going to jump that one.
Is it nonfiction?
It's nonfiction.
Okay.
Yep. Slavery is a good one. So slavery in the United States, while it was happening, people were profiting. People were turning a blind eye to it. There were some people that were dissenting, but they were, for the large part and for a long time, in the minority. And then now, as an American culture in our history books, we all agree slavery was a bad thing. We're all collectively against it. There's other examples like Nazi Germany. There are Germans that just turned a blind eye because it was affecting someone who was other than them. And then now, when you look back, we were always against it. If it was us, we would have always been against it.
I think about this concept a lot, actually.
Yeah. So he's talking about it in the context of the current conflict between Israel and Palestine, and the way that Israel retaliated, the devastating loss of life, and the destruction of infrastructure that was committed in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, and that they are still recovering from and going to be recovering from for a long time. And especially in America, how it is easier for us to look at it and we care and we probably have empathy and we're angry and we're frustrated, but at the end of the day, we don't do much about it because either we can't or because we're busy or it's happening to someone who is so other than us that we just have to go on with our daily lives. And then collectively in a few years, we will just agree we were always against that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this book covers a lot. It covers politics, obviously. It covers protests. So when we go into the civil rights movement, there's the idea that there was on-campus protests by students, right? And at the time, people were probably like, you're not doing anything, you're not accomplishing anything here, why are you just being an interruption? And then now when we look back, we're like, wow, those kids were so brave, they caused so much change for good, we're so happy that they did this and stood up for what was right. Jump forward to modern day where we had on-campus protests and people were saying the same thing about people protesting the atrocities that were happening in Palestine. We're saying, why are you doing this? You're getting nothing done. You're shutting down classes. You're interrupting the flow.
You're being political on campus.
Exactly. And then, like, it's history repeats itself, basically. Nobody's safe in this book. If you think because of your political aligning, you are better than somebody else in reference to this conflict, you're not. He calls out everybody, and as he should. Yeah. So there's so much in this book. I wrote in this thing all over. I can't find anything now. Oh yeah, here's one. Years later, it dawns on me that the immigrant class, which in one form or another describes or will come to describe in the looming cataclysmic decades of the Anthropocene, most of the world, is segregated by many things, chief among them, narrator. I sent this one to you. Some are for the privilege of an arrival story, a homecoming, others only departure after departure. This harkens to our author's past. He was born in Egypt. They had to flee to Qatar and then left Qatar for Canada, and then now he lives in the United States. So he's saying an immigrant stories can usually be defined by departure after departure, leaving behind a community, a place, a home over and over and over again. Yeah. I highly recommend this book. You're going to feel exposed. You're going to feel called out. You're going to feel called to action, even if it's in the slightest way. He talks about, and I know like society did this pretty recently, at least in the U.S., the power of a boycott and the power of your dollar. Just withholding your time and your money makes a difference. It feels small.
Society,
especially in a capitalistic society. It feels small. It feels maybe insignificant, but it does make a difference and it adds up. So you don't have to be necessarily out there on the streets. You don't have to be, I was going to say riding at the Capitol, but we can't say that anymore.
It happened.
Yeah. To make a difference. So there is a short story written by Ursula K. Le Guin called The Ones Who Walked Away from Omelas. Okay. This is like a philosophical study that I found in college from a friend that was studying philosophy, and I was like, hey, you probably read some cool articles, send me them when you get them. And she's like, okay. She sent me this one. I've been obsessed ever since. And he writes in this book, he writes the words, the ones who walk away. And I was like, I know what you're doing there. So the ones who walk away from Omelas, basically, brief overview. Omelas is this utopian city. Ursula describes it as like so utopian our brains probably can't even understand how perfect it is and how happy these people always are. At some point in the citizens' lives, they realize that the prosperity of the civilization is dependent on the suffering of one child that has to live in constant darkness, filth, suffering, hunger. And some people, when they find out this truth, they decide to walk away. So it's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
Whoa.
Yes.
I just got chills. Actually.
Right? When I read the story for the first time, and it has stuck with me ever since, to the point where reading the line, The Ones Who Walk Away, my brain, like a That's So Raven vision moment. And I think it is such an incredible thought experiment, especially as it relates to society in the current day, especially in America, and the West in general. It's what is the price of your prosperity and your day-to-day freedom, liberty, as it were. So that's a really interesting article to look for if you want to. I don't know, figure it out. I'm pretty sure you can just look it up and read the whole thing. It's pretty short. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. So crazy.
Okay, we're gonna do these two next.
On that I already know what it is. Okay, let me preface. Yes, I read these during Black History Month. No, I did not think it was a good idea in the end.
It's okay.
This is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventure of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, a.k.a. Samuel Clemens. You can't hide. So, I read these out of order.
Oh,
and that's on me. Yeah. This one came first.
Oh, you read that one first? A goose. A silly one.
I purchased this one first. I purchased this one in Colorado, this most recent time. This, again, was part of the adventure of reading the books on your shelves. This was one of them. This was not. But I need it for context. So I'll explain it in order. Tom Sawyer is this boy who lives...
Who whitewashes a fence in the first page.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All I know about this book.
Because I did also relate with you on that. I was like, yeah, he whitewashes the fence. That's such a tiny part of what happened in this book.
And that's all I read in 7th grade.
So yeah, at the beginning of the book, he swindles his friends into whitewashing a fence for him.
I remember thinking, like, I don't want to read a book about a kid who's manipulative. Like, I legitimately remember
Oh, girl, that's
that.
what all these books are.
and then I was like, so then I gave up.
Yeah.
I think I was like, I don't want to spend my time on that. Legitimately.
That's so fair.
I read all of Agatha Christie's and they were not. No. What was that called? You know.
I don't.
Oh.
Sorry,
you
but...
didn't?
Oh, the one book, yeah,
Yeah.
And then there were none.
Yeah, okay, I was close. I think I just, like, stumbled on my words.
It's okay. So Huckleberry Finn does appear in The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Oh.
They're kind of like sidekicks, buddy. So much happens. So much
really,
happens.
so little.
I know. They, as a group, actually mostly Tom Sawyer himself, because he's kind of the ringleader, they have the entire town conduct a search party for them 2 different times. 2 different times. Once they were like on the water and just decided to live as pirates, and everyone was like, "Where'd they go? Did they drown? You can't do that."
Is this real?
No. Well, like, what do you mean?
No, like in the is it not like a fever dream? Like is
no,
this real?
Yeah, it's all real.
Oh, weird. Weird.
He is definitely like a swindler. Yeah, he's just the little mischievous kids. They get caught up in a very serious and dangerous crime just by like being around, and they kind of solve it. I don't know. But no. I feel like this is a much more like middle grade version of what comes next.
That makes sense because we read it in middle school.
Thank you. I feel like Mark Twain, Mr. Clemens, was like, oh my goodness, I used the N-word twice in this book. Let me try again and use it 200 times in this book. Which is why I say it was a very questionable idea to read this during Black History Month. Don't do it if you don't want to hear the N-word all the time.
Everyone in our comments said that, so I think they're aware, you know? Like, I think they knew.
Yeah, but like, this is for the masses, you know?
You're right, that's true. Not everyone's comments, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Huckleberry Finn basically leaves the town that they're from, that he and Tom Sawyer are from, and he takes this slave with him named Jim, and that is where we get, what's his name? Percival Everett?
Yes,
James. His book, James. That's the whole reason I read these books.
Right.
And I read them, and I need a break before going into James.
Which I heard James is so good. Like, not a single soul... let me try that again.
Not a single soul?
No, I'm trying to take it again.
Okay.
Take it back. Not a single soul I've talked to has said it's bad.
Yeah.
They're like, you're gonna love it, and it's gonna be devastating.
So I will read it, but I need a break.
Especially if it's devastating.
Yeah. This book, I'll say the beginning when they're on the river and just like floating down talking about life. That's the best part of the book. Then they have 2 people join them who are just liars. This book is so much lying. There's this guy that's like, he convinces Huckleberry Finn and then an uneducated slave that he is like the Prince of France for a little bit, and then eventually they're like, this guy's not the Prince of France. And they like make them serve them, and it's their raft. I'm like, guys, take some control. It was not my cup of tea. Neither of these books were my favorite books. Tom Sawyer a little bit better. Huckleberry Finn, worse. Bad. But I will say I understand why it is classic American literature. We don't have a lot of American literature from this time period, and it does reflect the sentiments of, well, as far as I know, living and growing up in that time period, what it might have been like to live in the South.
Okay, we got this one.
Oh, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, I finished this.
What?
Oh no, this is.
I didn't do that.
It's okay. It was probably me.
It looks like blood.
It's not.
You sure?
It's coffee.
This
This is Part of Your World. No. This is yours truly, the sequel, kind of, to Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez.
Mm-hmm. It's so thick.
It is thick. I listened to it, and I finished it today.
Oh.
I like this one more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is this about the bestie?
This is about the bestie.
Okay.
This
I
is
like the bestie
Brianna.
a lot in the first book.
She is great.
Yeah.
She continues to be great. I think this one is more realistic. There's none of that like magical realism that you see a little bit of in Part of Your World.
Oh yeah, where like it's raining all of a sudden and acorns are falling. You're like, why are acorns falling? It's kind of symbolic, but why is it happening now again?
Exactly. Our love interest is Jacob, and just like Part of Your World, we switch between the the perspectives of Brianna and Jacob. They both are doctors working in the hospital. Jacob is so relatable as a character. I didn't relate to the male character in Part of Your World
Neither
at
did
all.
I.
I'm not a woodsy guy.
Yeah, I didn't relate to her either, not gonna lie.
This guy has social anxiety. He's just like trying to live his life. He's very particular. Like he likes to know before he arrives somewhere what the parking situation is. I'm like, same dude.
Yeah. Especially where we live.
Yeah. He definitely like has like a diagnosable version of social anxiety. I don't think I have that, but I agree with wanting things to be a certain way, to like wanting to know who's going to be somewhere before you show up, and how big is the crowd going to be, how loud is the music, all these things. And he's so good. He's so good, and the way that their love story forms is very realistic and very relatable. My only pretty big what do you call it, qualm with this book is the first instance of miscommunication. And if you have read the book, you know there is a huge leap. Brianna should be an Olympic long jumper, because the way she jumped to the conclusion after one conversation she overheard, I was like, that's crazy. And I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, if I had gone through what she had gone through, would I jump to the same conclusion? Maybe.
Okay, I'll read it. I'll tell you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really need other people's perspective.
Yeah.
So let me know in the comments.
Because I mean, just my perspective isn't gonna be like the end all be all,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
might be helpful to like see if I can bring anything else to the story.
Yeah. All the ones that come later, and you do learn more about her past later that might have influenced how she got to that conclusion before. It is kind of a fake dating trope, but not in an overplayed way. Yeah.
I like fake dating tropes and low stakes enemies to lovers.
Okay. Yeah. It definitely wasn't enemies to lovers. But yeah, the fake dating.
But I don't like enemies to lovers where they're like actually mean to each other or like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I like enemies to lovers when it's like, they just like don't get along, and it's not because of miscommunication. It's just like they don't vibe for some reason, and they learn why or whatever. But like I don't like when they're trying to kill each other. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't be a fourth wing.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book. It was very touching. There were some moments in it that I was like laughing out loud. Abby Jimenez does these books so well. I am excited to read the third one.
Yay!
I'm gonna keep going. It was a nice little romance.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, 3 more books.
3 more books. Brah.
I'm Hercules.
Why do we do that?
I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense.
Sometimes
That doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to do that. Anyway.
maybe. Oh, it was probably the note. The
3
sound.
books?
No.
Oh,
What is this?
Not a River. This was one of the
know
books that I pulled for the March TBR jar.
That's why I know it.
Good job. So this is Not a River by Selva Almada and translated by Annie McDermott.
Oh, a classic. I
Yes,
love Annie.
From the Spanish, and they are from Argentina. Okay, so we follow these 3 men. We have Enero, which is January. Yeah, for the people paying attention at home. We have El Negro. We'll get back to that later. Calm down. And we have someone named Tilo. His name doesn't mean anything right now. Okay.
Maybe it does.
Maybe it does. That I know of. They start off on this fishing trip.
Mm-hmm.
They are on a river, you guessed it, and they hook a stingray, and to make sure they catch it, they shoot it 3 times. Okay, that's where we are. Everybody here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So, they get the stingray in the boat. They, park on an island, dock. When it's a boat, you dock. And then they, hang the stingray up to dry and whatever. Some locals from the island come over, and they're like, oh, you caught a stingray. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, did you need to shoot it 3 times? And they're like, yeah. And they're like looking around, and they're like, we catch stingrays all the time, and maybe we shoot them once. Like, what's going on here? So that's kind of like the start of this story. The formatting of this book is also very interesting because it is formatted like a river. There is another cover that like has a river with its offshoots, and that's how the story is told. You have your main channel, your main flow, and then just randomly, it feels maybe kind of random, but it's not. You have like an offshoot of a story that goes this way. You have an offshoot of a story that goes this way, and it's still relevant to the main story. Just like a river's offshoots are relevant to the river, and then sometimes they will connect back, and sometimes they don't. It's just adding context to the full river.
I got it.
Thank you.
I ordered it.
Okay.
I didn't buy it. I ordered it from the library.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So back to El Negro. So this is something that is very culture specific, and if you're from America, it doesn't make sense because it translates to the black guy, right? And this is something that is not uncommon in Spanish-speaking countries. The first time I heard it, I was in Costa Rica. I was like a teenager. We were playing tag. Somebody was like, a Costa Rican gentleman that I had become friends with was introducing a new kid to the game. The kid goes, "Who is it?" And the guy, not knowing that I understood rudimentary Spanish, goes, "El Negrito, the little black boy." And my head, I got whiplash because I went, and you could see like a little bit of confusion on his face, and immediately I had to go, like, he's like,
it's a different country.
It's a different country. Like it's normal. There might be racism underlying, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway,
that's not for here.
That's not for here right now. We're here reading this book.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, this book it's kind of a focus on respecting nature. That's like the clear story. It's also a focus on, or a meditation on guilt and the things that we do and the things that, like the way we affect people's paths, much like a river. And the island locals, this is like the whole kind of crux of the book in a little nutshell. He's talking about how these foreigners come onto their island and are causing this fuss. They're disrespecting their nature that they are so connected with. And he says, and again, it's not a river, it's this river. He spent more time with it than anyone. So what gave them the right? It wasn't a ray, it was that ray. So kind of how, I don't know, let's take a wide example, deforestation. It's like, it's not a tree, it's that tree, you know? We see things as this big general idea when there are individual pieces within it. And I think it was a really interesting way to tell that story. It's really short. It was like 90 pages. Highly recommend picking it up. I had a great time. It was very literary, a little ominous. There's a little spooky vibes, but not scary.
This book I wanted John to read like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a specific reason why I wanted him to read it. And it wasn't because necessarily of the content of the book or even like that it was the most brilliant book ever. But there was a reason I wanted him to read it, and I'm glad that you did. Okay. And that is An Olive Grove and Ends by Moses Mackenzie. There's another cover of this book that has more like Jamaican type print on it, in the colors, and then it has is there a tree on that one? I think there's a tree, but maybe not on that one. But this cover is so pretty.
It's so pretty.
Look how beautiful it is.
So
yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is one of the ones that I had to order from England. Why do I do that? Why can't I just say England?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Have I ever shared this on the channel that I like love my thoughts on this book?
Don't know. I don't think so.
No, because it was the March that you were in Spain that I read this book.
That's true.
So you're living in a different country. There's no way we have this channel.
We follow this guy who, him and his family are living in Bristol, and they are all Jamaican. So, how do I explain this? The book gives you a family tree, and you're gonna need it.
You're gonna need it, yeah.
I don't think I really needed it because we have families that echo this.
Yeah.
He a lot of times writes dialogue as if the person is speaking patois. They are speaking patois, but he writes it in a, how do you explain it? Like a like
the phonetically.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Phonetically. So the words don't make proper English words, but if you sound it out,
because it's not English.
Correct.
It's just writing in a different language.
Yes,
essentially.
it's writing in patois. There were a few times where I went to my mom and I was like, you know what this is?
Or like I did that with my mom too when I was reading it, because I was like, Mom, how would you write this word?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have written some of the words the way that he does.
Yeah.
Like, I know the word, but I would have written it differently.
Mm-hmm,
and then
mm-hmm.
I don't know who's right. And my mom was like, no one is.
No one is.
There's no way to really write it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
So yeah, I had to read this. At first I had to get into my grandmother's headspace, because when I started reading the patois, I was like stumbling over the words so much, and I was like, well, I know this language, but I've never read this language before. So once I got there, I was like, oh, okay.
You just have to like change your voice in your head to patois.
I read it to me as if my grandmother was scolding me. But I think this book talks about church and religious trauma so well, and reveals a lot of the hypocrisy that can sometimes exist within the church and the double standards. Yeah, so I loved it. I'm so happy. The author is our age, which is crazy.
Younger than us when he wrote this.
Yes, yeah. Our age now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I looked on Storygraph, and this thing has like 200 something reviews. This book needs more flowers.
Yeah.
Pick this up.
Pick this up. About family dynamics. Yep. It's about honor. It's about community. Yeah. It's about shame. It's about religion. It's about colonialism.
Keep going.
It's just so well-rounded.
Yeah.
The only thing that like I didn't love was that sometimes the writing didn't match with like, I don't know, like I didn't get to the depth sometimes that I think some other authors do.
Yeah.
But I think that it's his first book.
Yeah. And if this is your first one, where are you going to go from here? That's crazy. Only up, I hope.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard of this from this author since
yeah.
But I really did love it.
It's very good.
I felt very seen by it, even though I don't live in London.
Yeah.
And I'm not a man. But I think like
there's like so much like duality at play. Like there's like the masculine and feminine powers. There's like different religions. Like there's Islam and Christianity at play. Like all of this thing, like a professional career and like a career made off the streets. Like all of these things are at play on these opposing sides, and our character is stuck in between all of them. And
do you relate?
Back off. And honestly, some of the outcomes were shocking to me. And in a good way. I
don't remember.
That's okay.
It's been a long time. We touched each other. That was weird. Daniel Black's Isaac's Song.
Okay.
We said that like we were at an award show.
And the Oscar goes to. So this is Isaac's Song by Daniel Black. He has another book that's very popular. I think it's called Don't Cry for Me, and a lot of people have given that one a lot of praise. So I want to get to that one as well. This follows our main character. His name is Isaac through adolescence up until adulthood, and it is formatted by Isaac. We start off with him as an adult. He's going to therapy. He's talking to his therapist about basically the trauma that he places all that blame, a majority of that blame, on the way his father treated him growing up. And his therapist is like, you should write down your story, and that will give you a lot of clarity into things that happened, maybe the way you are changing history to justify and make excuses for the way you feel about yourself and some people, and like that they don't deserve. So he does that, and we are following him as he's writing down his story. So he is growing up in an all-black household. It's just his dad, his mom, and him. He realizes that he is gay from a very early age, but works really hard to hide that. And his parents, specifically his father, is very opposed to anything nearly like traditionally feminine that he engages in. So he's a very artistic kid. He loves to dance. He likes just different kinds of arts. And his dad is like, no, you need to go out for baseball. You need to do sports. Like change the way like you walk. There was one scene when he races kids at school, and these kids are like, I bet you can't beat me in a race, blah, blah. And he wins or he ties or whatever, and he goes home. He ties. He goes home to his dad, and his dad is like, why are you so happy you tied? And he's like, yeah, but I showed them that I could do it. And then he goes back to school, and I forgot how it triggers, but he's self-conscious of the way he might have run and how he looked. And he goes to a kid who is one of his friends and he was like, I need you to be honest with me. How did I look when I ran? And he was like, Isaac, like, I don't really want to talk about this. And he was like, I just really need you to tell me how I looked when I ran. And he was like, yeah, people had like some things to say. And he was like, that's really all I need to hear.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he goes through this journey of reimagining and like writing his past, and there's a lot of healing that's done. There's a lot of forgiveness to be had on the part of his from him to his father, and there's a lot of empathy because he realizes that his dad was acting out of just the things that he grew up in the South, in a very rural town. All these lessons that were instilled in him as a child were now coming out in the way he fathered his child. And that's so normal, and it takes a lot of work as a parent to unlearn your biases to make sure they don't negatively affect your child, and no one can do it perfectly. It's impossible, I think. And it's impressive as an adult that he takes the time to go back and reimagine that. So if you feel like that's something that you're working through, like parental trauma that was passed down to you, this is a very good book to maybe relate, think about an exercise in undoing that. Highly recommend.
Wow. Oh gosh, that's it.
Oh gosh. Oh golly.
You read such good books this
I had a blast. How about you?
Wow.
Y'all exhausted? I'm exhausted. I've been talking for so long.
I'm
exhausted hearing my voice.
For us, it's been over an hour.
That's, yeah.
So,
yeah. We've been here for a hot minute. But thanks for listening. Let us know if you've read any of these books. I really want to hear your thoughts on like yours truly. Your thoughts on Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Anything that you don't have to do this. There's more down there.
I'm not going
Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm honestly so happy to be back talking about books. I missed it.
Yeah, we took a break because our lives got chaotic. So
Truly.
We're here,
back.
hanging out, talking about books, and we love it.
And we love it. So, what do I usually say? Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.